wanted to quickly introduce those of you who don't know already about Everyday Wellbeing. So it was the vision of our dear friend Linda Castronova, and she had this great idea of the community doing yoga outside every day, 365 days a year. And lo and behold, she made it happen, and we just celebrated year 10 of yoga outside. And out of that idea and vision and yoga outside came into being Everyday Wellbeing, which is adding other workshops and programs into it. And so it's a nonprofit. And really the mission of the organization is to make wellness initiatives open to everyone all the time, regardless of who we are or regardless of monetary, resources. And so all of the events that we have are donation-based, so they're completely free of charge, and there's never any pressure to donate or not. It's always welcome, but not at all expected. We do have a donation box in the front. And we have a mailing list and a website for anyone who's interested. You can just ask us after. So I think that's all I want to say about Everyday Wellbeing. And I'll introduce Amy. So Dr. Amy Rothenberg has practiced as a licensed naturopathic doctor since 1986. She is the American Association of Naturopathic Physicians 2017 Physician of the Year, and spearheaded the successful effort to license naturopath doctors in the Bay State. She's the author of the Amazon bestseller, You Finished Treatment, Now What? A field guide for cancer survivors. She served on the Board of Health in Amherst for 6 years and is vice president of the board of the Amherst Survival Center. She's currently a board member of Everyday Wellbeing. Dr. Rothenberg has traveled the world to learn and teach natural and integrative medicine. Being a doctor, a 3-time cancer survivor, thriver, a wife, a mother, all influence her clinical practice, teaching and writing. With her partner, Dr. Paul Hershu, she raised 3 wonderful, now adult children and continues to enjoy the good life here in Amherst, including their first grandchild. When not working in the world of natural medicine, Dr. Rothenberg enjoys time with family and friends on the ballroom dance floor, making art and music, and puttering in the garden and kitchen. And above all, on a more personal note, Amy is an honest, kind, generous soul who has opened her home and heart to not only me, but also many others on countless occasions. Times when I didn't have my own family to celebrate a holiday with, Amy and Paul welcomed me, and others, even those they had never met, with open arms, making us truly feel a part of their own family. To that, I am forever grateful. I am truly in awe of Amy and Paul's generosity of love. May we all know such people in our lives.
Wow. Nice. So sweet. Very nice. Very nice. Lovely.
Okay, so welcome. Welcome to get some tea back there if you like, ginger and turmeric and honey. So when I was thinking about giving a talk this winter, speaking with the other people on the Everyday Wellbeing Board, and this seemed like a good enough topic because who doesn't get sick and who doesn't want to get sick less or have to be less severe? So one of the things I want to start with is the public health understanding of acute illness and how there is an arc of exposure, falling sick, being sick, and getting better. And it's an arc, and that we can have an impact and modify our risk at every step of the way in that arc. So we learned a lot during COVID, actually, around what kind of things make people more susceptible to falling sick in the first place, And then if you do get exposed, what you can do to reduce your risk of getting whatever it is that you got exposed to. And then if you do get whatever it is that you got exposed to, what can you do to make that experience a little less bad? Can you go grab Annabelle? She's going toward the wrong door there. Thank you. Here she goes. Okay. So in understanding the arc of illness in that way can really help inform how we act when we know what's going on. And I love knowing that. I find that personally as a doctor, but also as a person living in this world and somebody who raises and is around children a lot, that we actually are not just victim to what the germs are that are floating around, that we actually have some capacity to prevent illness from happening, to modify its intensity, and to recover. I mean, one of the other things that we really learned around COVID as a population was this concept of long COVID. But as a physician, I can tell you that for the last 40 years of my practice, we have known about the concept of really having long effect from an acute illness. So most people, you get the flu, okay, you're down and out maybe a week, maybe two, and then you bounce back. But other people, they had the flu and they never were well since they had the flu. That this is a real thing, it's a known thing. And there are ways of mitigating illnesses so that they don't become these elongated experiences that we never are better from. So I'd like to talk about that general stuff as we go along today. And I'd like to really start with why do we get sick more in the winter? All right, why do you think we get sick more? What are some ideas that you know of that make us more sick in the winter? You're indoors more, which is, why is that a problem?
Fresh air.
You don't get the fresh air, you don't get exposure to the sun, the vitamin D stimulation from the sun. Also, if you're in enclosed spaces with other people, the germs are kind of trapped and have nowhere to go except up your nose and into your mouth, or onto your hands and then into your mouth, right? What other reasons that people get more sick in the winter?
It's colder.
It's colder, it's drier, especially in New England where we're heating with whatever forms we're heating with, it tends to dry out the house. And when the mucous membranes of the nose and the nasal pharynx, meaning everything from the tonsils back down into the throat, are dried out, they don't do as good of a job at flushing the germs that we are exposed to. So it's really a great time. Remember the old vaporizer? Or like sticking that pot of water on top of your wood stove? It's really good to keep things moist. Of course, you have to prevent mold. Mold is another issue, another challenge. Another reason that people get more sick in the winter has to do with being indoors, more lack of sunlight. But there's a certain percentage of people, some people say it's in that 30 to 40% in New England, who suffer from seasonal affective disorder, which is where you get kind of depressed, kind of down, kind of like no energy, can't get out of bed, can't get out of your own way, just feel lower in the darker months. Part of that has to do with the pineal gland, which sits above your the nasal, top of your nasal bones and deep in, is when that is stimulated, it helps to release serotonin. Serotonin is kind of like the happy hormone. People that take SSRIs, those are the drugs that help you keep more serotonin in the system, theoretically. Here comes another person going the wrong way. Everybody's oriented to the front door, which makes sense. So when we have seasonal affective disorder and people's energy and psyche and emotional body is lower, it impacts your immune system. So we have a whole world in medicine called psychoneuroimmunology, where your mind affects your nervous system and your nervous system affects your immune system, and every which way goes all around and around. So if somebody's feeling more down, they are more likely to fall ill when exposed. So for seasonal affective disorder, there are many wonderful natural medicine approaches. The biggest one that we see terrific efficacy for is the light box. It's a particular wavelength of light that you sit in front of for half an hour in the morning. Hi, welcome. That you sit in front of in the morning, and it helps to stimulate that pineal gland and helps to reverse that kind of winter blues, as we call them. There are other things that we can do as well, but that's the one that has been shown to be most effective. And when I have patients that we know, from their history have struggled with SAD, we start the light box in October, before the days get very, very short. We've got to give them a head start with that. The other thing that we're interested in, if you're indoors all the time and you're going to be exposed to more germs, is, I think this is probably the cheapest version, I brought this from home, of an air purifier that you can have. It costs about $32 total. If you have a box fan in your basement, clean it up, get some packing tape, and then buy a home heating system. If you're not off the grid like some people in this room, you have a heating system that has a filter on it. You can buy these in packs of 5 at Home Depot, and you want the FPR 10. This is all on my website, you can find it. And you basically tape it on all 4 sides, on the side that the air's coming in. And then you run it, and you always run it on low. The reason you run it on low is you try to put it on high, it takes too much energy to suck through, you'll burn out the engine, the motor of the fan. And these filters filter for mold, bacteria, viruses, spores of mold, pollen, dust, and dander. They're really high quality filters, and this is a great way, especially like Thanksgiving. You know, we're gonna have 25 people at our house for Thanksgiving. I'm gonna be running these. I have like 5 of them, and we're just gonna put them everywhere. Because, you know, we got the grandkid with the snot, and we got the 3rd grader with who knows what. So, you know, we're gonna just have that on for everybody's protection, as opposed to trying to meet outside, which is gonna be a little chilly, I think, on Thanksgiving Day. So things you can do, you know, put the vaporizer on, and I would say the vaporizer, if you put it in the room that you sleep, that's the place that you spend the most concentrated amount of time, and put it on early in the day, just close the door. You should walk into the room. Now there's 2 kinds of vaporizers, right? You have your cool mist vaporizer, and you have the one that makes steam. The one that makes steam actually will make the room warmer, and actually very comforting if you are already sick. Some people worry about the mold with those kinds. As long as you keep it clean every week or 2, get in there, dedicate a family toothbrush that nobody will be putting again in their mouth to clean out the inner parts of your vaporizer. That can be very, very helpful. Okay, so other things in terms of prevention, I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but the things that we learned from COVID, I mean, it does make sense to wash your hands a lot, especially when you come home from being out. If you're worried about it, like let's say you've got this big trip, you're so excited, you're going to Bermuda or somewhere, and it's the week before, just mask up the week before when you go out to the store. I mean, it doesn't cost anything, there's no side effects, you might as well. And then you're decreasing your chance of exposure. We know that certain medications and drugs will depress immune function. So when I sit down with a patient who comes in, if their chief complaint is that they get sick a lot, or when they get sick, they get so sick it takes them months to get better, I'm interested anyway in reviewing their medications. And certain very commonly prescribed medications that are not life-saving but are super commonly prescribed have a negative impact on immune function. The number 1 drug I would put in that category, and I hate to say it because probably some of you are on them, are the PPIs. Those are the proton pump inhibitors, and things that reduce stomach acid for people that have GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, a heartburn, and they are now available over the counter. Many, many people are on them. And the reason that they depress immune function is because in general, your first line of defense is your mouth. But your second line of defense, at your mouth and your throat, where you have your lymph nodes, you have your anterior cervical chain, you have your submental lymph nodes. These are all lymph nodes that help when you get something in your mouth or your nose. Your immune system, it's like a miraculous system in our body. It not only has macrophages that go around and chomp up the bacteria and the viruses causing illnesses, but it also has a memory. You have a memory of every illness you've ever had. And your body, it's like way faster than any computer system. It can kind of go back through the system and, oh, we've seen that before, and they bring in the correct antibodies to fight that illness.
Wow.
It's remarkable. It's truly remarkable. I mean, it's so crazy. And as a person who had leukemia a couple of years ago and a stem cell transplant, before you have your stem cell transplant, they get rid of your entire bone marrow, including your entire memory of all your immune function and immune system. So when I came out of my transplant, I was what's called immune naive. I had no memory of any illness I'd ever had, both in my mind, I probably had them in my mind, but I didn't have it in my blood system anymore. So these years, I'm just rebuilding, if you will. Also, no vaccine status. Every vaccine I ever had, no memory of any of that in my blood system. So it's kind of a crazy time personally, but it has me rethinking about like how indebted we are to our immune system for keeping us healthy and being able to fight the things that we get exposed to. So aside from the nasopharynx and the whole throat and the tonsils that help us fight infection, our second line of defense is in our stomach. And the reason it's in our stomach, and when I say stomach, I don't mean abdomen and your whole digestive tract, I literally mean the organ of your stomach. The organ of the stomach has many digestive enzymes that float around, but it has a lot of HCl, hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid is a great killer of things that don't belong there. So if we suppress the hydrochloric acid by taking PPIs and other acid reducers, we are literally telling our body not to fight the things that are coming in that we don't need. So that's why people during COVID who were on PPIs had a higher risk of developing COVID than their age-matched people, because they didn't have the ability through the stomach to fight the infection. Other drugs that suppress the immune system, think corticosteroids, certainly that people are on for musculoskeletal problems and other autoimmune problems, will depress immunity. And whenever anybody's on them long term, you have to sign something that says you understand this is going to suppress your immunity. And the one thing I would say about drugs in general is that the side effects that a person experiences with drugs are dose dependent. So if somebody has to be on a drug, then the conversation could be with the prescribing physician, is it possible for me to be on less of this because I'm concerned about the side effects? So that's something to just think about, if you or a loved one is taking certain kind of drugs.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Did you give a name to the elements that are the memory keepers? Did you say
Yes.
something?
Well, your immune system, you have part of the immune system that is really in response to anything and just kind of Pac-Manning those. That's called the macrophage. And then we have
What is
the
it called?
macrophage. So that's a kind of cell. And then you have the one that is sort of remembering more the humoral immune system. And there's a lot of details we can get into about immune system function and functionality. And the more we study the immune system, the more we understand how very complicated it is. And there are lots of parts of it, and there are lots of things that we do and the environment and things like that that have a negative impact on the immune system. And then there's a lot of things we can do to help stimulate and support immune function, which we're definitely going to get into. But yeah. So we have the hygiene, we have the air purifying, we have the moisturizing. These are all just back to preventive concepts. I would say leaning into whatever you know, and I'll give you the broad strokes around the anti-inflammatory diet is going to make you less susceptible to falling ill. So the anti-inflammatory diet consists of lean protein, whole grains, nuts and seeds, healthy fats, and lots of fruits and vegetables, and not a lot of this. So all the refined foods, alcohol, there's not really a great amount of alcohol to have. I'm sorry, that's like the worst thing I could say to any lecture. Sorry. But a little bit's not going to hurt anybody. But really, your body reflects the habitual, not the occasional. So just remember that. If you want to have a little glass of wine once a week, that's not going to make anybody sick. But I probably wouldn't have a glass of wine every night. It's got too much sugar, and it tends to depress immune function. It also, one of the things that alcohol does in your small intestine where the absorption happens of your nutrients, what alcohol does is it expands the space through which the food particles, the proteins, the fats, the carbohydrates pass, so that these little chunks of stuff getting into your bloodstream to nourish you are larger. When they're larger, if you happen to be a little sensitive to any of them, you're getting bigger chunks of it, and that's going to make you more sensitive, more allergic. So it's like I have a patient in my practice who he loves to have pizza and a beer. All right, a lot of people like that. Well, he can enjoy a beer and be totally fine. A few days later, he can enjoy a pizza and be totally fine. If he has the beer and the pizza together, the beer makes his little bit of sensitivity to dairy and maybe his little sensitivity to gluten exacerbated. And so then everything falls apart. He feels like crap. So I said to him, well, you got to divide and conquer. Just enjoy them separately. Separate them for a few hours. It's not the same. I know it's not the same. I'm just saying. You got to also pay attention to your body. The body gives you all kinds of symbols and symptoms, so that you, if you're paying attention, you might hear better. Okay, so the anti-inflammatory diet, most people can improve their diet. Maybe they look at their diet. And the way I have people do this in my practice, I have them do a diet diary for me, writing down everything they eat for 4 or 5 days, including a weekend day with approximate amounts. if the diet is an issue for that person. And we look at it and we just talk about it. And I'm interested less in taking things away from people's diets than I am putting things in. A lot of times I say to people, I think you just need to add one big salad. You know, we try to get you up to 7 or 8 veggies a day. Just add one big salad, that's gonna be very helpful for you. Or you know that you love those, you know, before you go to bed, a couple of handfuls of those cookies, like probably not the best way to end your day. You know, what can we do? Can we get some apples and peanut butter in there? Can we get something with some whole grain cracker with some cheese, something with some whole grain with some protein and some fat? It's gonna be more satiating and less spiking of your blood sugar, which is not good for immune function. So leaning into the anti-inflammatory diet, huge on the note of prevention. Staying with an exercise plan, I feel like a broken record. Exercise, like I always say to people, you're only gonna do one thing. If you're only gonna make one change, it would be to exercise if you're not already exercising. If you are already exercising, look at how you're exercising and be sure you're doing it both enough and maybe the right times. So first of all, if you're exercising every day, hallelujah, I'm happy, you know, I'm happy. But I do then want to break it down. Like for most people, it's best if there's something aerobic, if there's something which, you know, everybody knows, jumping up and down, running, walking, jumping rope, dancing, swimming, biking. What else do people do for aerobics these days? Aerobics class, you know, Zumba, all that good stuff. Anybody here have a other specialty of tap dancing? We have some. You tap? I've been tap dancing a lot with my 16-month-old granddaughter who has tap shoes that are like this big. And you know what that 16-month-old can do? They can go like this. Yeah, she's just fantastic. Okay, so aerobic people kind of get it. Then anything related to weight bearing, weightlifting, resistance training, TheraBand workout, lifting weights, free weights, very important for helping keep our calcium in our bones. And that is also very important for stimulating bone health in general, which comes back to immune function because vitamin D is so related, which we're going to get to in a minute. Okay, and then the third part, which Everyday Wellbeing has really been championing, is anything stretching, yoga, tai chi, qigong, just sitting on the floor and stretching, just to keep ourselves flexible. And the reason that exercise is so very important is that it raises your threshold for feeling stress, and it dissipates the stress that you have, and it helps you be better perfused, meaning that it helps your blood move around to all the places, including past your lymph nodes. Lymph nodes here, here, here. We have lymph nodes all along our sternum, here. There's just a lot of lymph nodes, and the lymph nodes are the ones that seed the B and the T lymphocytes. Those are the white blood cells that fight infection. So when you exercise, you're basically stimulating immune function. Well, people say to me, well, if I feel really crappy and I got a cold and I'm coughing my head off, like, do I really need to exercise? And the main thing I say to them is, obviously, rest is very important and it's a key to preventing illness, rest and sleep. But even when you're sick, if you can just a gentle walk, and if it's cold and windy or icy out, I say to people, just take a couple laps up and down your hallway. I mean, literally. When I came home from the hospital and I was so deconditioned, I had like a goal on my watch. Today I'm going to walk 100 steps, and 100 steps is not that much. That's like to the bathroom and back a few times. And then a couple of days later, I'm going to get 250 steps today, and build myself back up slowly. So I think that the role of exercise in preventive medicine and health cannot really be overestimated. And the main thing I think for people is like try to make it something fun, try to make it something you're going to enjoy doing. Dreading something and hating it, then that's not good for your stress level and all of that. All right. So we have an anti-inflammatory diet, exercise, getting the air quality as best that you can. I would say that paying attention to your microbiome is very important. The microbiome is everything that lives between your clavicles and your hip bones in this sort of rectangle. That's not a bone, a joint, an organ, your omentum, which is this sort of fatty layer that lays over everything. It's just sort of the milieu that everything lives in. That's called your microbiome. And from the microbiome, you basically, and again, the more we study the microbiome, the more we understand how incredible it is. We're made up of billions of little fellas, you can call them, little living organisms that are not us. They make us, but they're not us. And they are very important for your immune system, your digestive system, your cognition, your mood. I mean, there's almost nothing that they're not involved with, the microbiome. And so how do we get a robust and diverse microbiome? It's a good question. First of all, we have to remove the things that knock out the microbiome. Alcohol, number one, just knocks the microbiome right off its butt. That's unfortunate. And then antibiotics, a lot of antibiotics. Now, some antibiotics, people need them. They're life-saving. I'm not against drugs. I've probably taken more drugs than everybody in this room put together as a 3-time cancer survivor. But the point is that a lot of antibiotics will really alter the microbiome. And then we also know that eating a diet that does not have enough fruits and vegetables in it. What we're after, the fruits and vegetables, many things in terms of the vitamins in there, the nutrients in the fruits and vegetables, but they also provide a form of non-soluble fibers. The non-soluble fibers are the ones that we cannot digest, but we need them because the microbiome critters live off of those non-digestible bits of matter. If you're not big on fruits and vegetables, you can help yourself by, and you can tell everybody this because it's like such a good piece of advice. You can buy some organic, I would buy organic if you can, if you can afford it and find it, potato starch. I know it sounds so crazy. Potato starch, that like much maligned, like, oh my God, potato starch. A little bit of potato starch, even like 1/8 of a teaspoon, 1/4 of a teaspoon, not a lot, mixed in or put on anything. It goes in warm water, it goes in soup you made, a casserole, your cereal, some tea. It doesn't have any taste, it won't change the texture. It's sort of the perfect prebiotic. And a prebiotic is what the microbiome needs to thrive and survive. So think about when you nourish and support your microbiome, you are helping your immune system. The other way you can do that is by eating foods that have been cultured or fermented. So that's everything from kombucha to miso to kimchi to pickles to fermented vegetables. And just remember, it has to be pickleated the old-fashioned way. So if you go into the market and you buy a jar of elastic pickles, that has been pickleated, but it's not fermented, okay? It's basically, and the way you do that is with like sugar, salt, vinegar, spices. Fermentation is just water, spices, the vegetable, salt, and the passage of time. And anything will pickle it. I've pickled everything from cabbage to cucumbers to beets to carrots to garlic. And the way you'll know this when you're at the grocery store, if it's actually pickleated the old-fashioned way, is it's going to cost 2 or 3 times as much as the other ones. Pretty much, yes?
How often do you take fermented foods?
Great question. How often do you take fermented foods? I ask my patients to have something fermented every day. And you don't need a lot. You can have sips, you can have a forkful. I got a forkful of, this morning on I had omelet for breakfast. I put a forkful of pickled beets on that. A forkful. Same thing, kimchi. It's like a spice, a condiment. It's not like you sit down for a bowl of kimchi.
Right.
Or a bowl of miso soup. Like I sometimes now, particularly if I'm traveling, I will you can buy packets of miso soup that come with a little bit of seaweed and a little bit of tofu. You open the packet, you put it in your mug, hot water, on the plane. I do it on the plane. I'm having my fermented food on the airplane. My miso soup, nobody knows. I'm loving up my microbiome. So that's really important. And you can also take probiotics. The world of probiotics, I'm not gonna lie, is extremely unregulated. It's just unregulated. It's literally hard to know what you're getting. If you're going to use probiotics, I would say go for something that's multi-strain, unless you really know what you're doing and you want that particular probiotic. And there is excellent research, for instance, on somebody who has everybody know what C. diff is? It's a very bad diarrhea that most of you get in the hospital. It's terrible, terrible. And it's mostly from too many antibiotics. And the treatment, of course, for it is more antibiotics. I've had very good success treating people with C. diff using natural medicine and getting them off the probiotic, treadmill there. But there are particular probiotics that are needed for that gut issue. And similarly, if I have a patient that has chronic bladder infections, there are certain probiotics that we use for bladder infections. If somebody is having ulcerative colitis a chronic illness and we're doing a whole plan, there are certain probiotics that I'm going to look for a person with ulcerative colitis. But if you're just looking for general immune support, and you can get a probiotic with 8, 10, 12 different bugs in it, and you don't even need to take it every day. There's no rules really around supplementation, like you have to take it every single day. Probably 2 or 3 times a week is enough. Yogurt and kefir are probably the most common sources of high probiotic foods that people ingest, and those are terrific. And you can get them now lactose-free. If lactose is an issue for you, that's great. I generally ask people to do full fat everything, not no fat, for lots of different reasons. Helps you absorb your vitamin D better. Your fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, E, and K, need fat in order to absorb them. So everybody going on those very, very low-fat diets, that wasn't good for absorption of many of our essential nutrients. All right, prevention. Anything else about prevention? Sleep. I will say, the more we can get 7 or 8 hours, 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep a night, the better. And this is a huge problem for a lot of people. We're in an epidemic of insomnia. It's very bad. And there are a lot of things we can do to help people sleep. And it's a priority for me with my patients, gotta get everybody sleeping. The main thing keeping people awake, I would say, is anxiety, having not exercised during the day, having eaten too late, and addiction to devices. And don't even get me started. I see it in my 15-month-old. They have no devices for her in the household, but the parents are on their phones and computers for work. And if she gets her hand on a phone, she's, even at 7, 8 months, she'd hold it, she'd start doing this. Oh my God, get that away from her. Okay. I think that's enough about prevention. Unless anybody has any questions about prevention, your own experiences, questions,
How
thoughts.
many times did you say to take the ferments? Do you take it at every meal, every day?
Most days a little bit. Most days I think can be terrific. Yeah, a little bit.
But it doesn't have to be every meal.
No, I think that might be overkill. It's not going to hurt you to do it every day. And it's not going to hurt you to do it every meal. But they are expensive unless you're making them yourself. So I'm mindful of that.
That's just what I was gonna say. It's
Yeah.
actually really fun to make them.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, I know you do,
Yeah.
but it's if you like them, like you've been doing it. It's really fun, and cabbage, I think, is probably the simplest to start
Yes,
with.
it is. It is. I would say we've been about 90% effective in making them. Once in a while we make it, it's like, I don't know what happened here. It's not, it doesn't either molded, or not smell right. No one would eat that. So that goes into the compost. All right. Well, okay. So let's talk about some actual illnesses that people actually get. I think that's a good thing I wanted to talk about that. Okay. In terms of colds, I will preface by saying I don't think it's a problem to get a cold once in a while. And what I try to tell my patients is just lean into it. Take a few days off if you can. Off of work if you're working. Try to line up the daycare if you need it, and give into it. Watch a show, read a book, zone out, stare at the wall. I think there is a place for illness in our lives, and as long as it's acute and self-limited and not going to kill us, it's okay to lean into being sick once in a while. And just get cozy with it. And I just want to say that. Yeah. One of my favorite things to tell my patients is do less. Just do less. Because I think we're a very go, do society and culture, and that doesn't always serve us all in the best way. But when people get a cold, the main issue with colds for people, I will say, is the following. Some people, every time they get a cold, they get a fill in the blank. It triggers asthma, it triggers a lung infection, it triggers sinusitis, they get a cough that'll last a month, they'll get so deconditioned. It's like the cold is not the problem, the cold is like the harbinger. And so those are the people for whom we really hit them real hard at the first sign of a cold. So at the very, very first sign of a cold, my first tool is homeopathy. Homeopathy, does everybody know what homeopathy is? Or more or less, do I need to explain what homeopathy is a little bit?
I would.
Yeah.
Okay. So homeopathy is a whole system of medicine. It's practiced by people like myself, naturopathic doctors, but also medical doctors and osteopaths and chiropractors. can do homeopathy, and nurses and people at home can do homeopathy, and veterinarians use homeopathy. And it's based on the idea that if it uses very, very small amounts of mostly mineral and vegetable substances prepared in a particular way, where it's very, very dilute. And the idea is that it's going to stimulate a response in the person. And the way you choose the homeopathic remedy is based on the way the person is experiencing their cold. So how many of you, when you're first getting sick and you have a cold, you get kind of sad a little bit with it? And how many of you get a little bit irritable? And how many of you get a little bit anxious, anxious with it? You know, some people. So part of homeopathy, we're looking at what's happening psycho-emotionally to the person. It's not just physically. How many of you, when you get a cold, you become extremely hot, and you're just so hot you have to just take off the next layer? And then some people are going to be freezing and they can't get warm enough. These things in conventional medicine, there's really nowhere to file them. It's just sort of like, you wouldn't even be asked these things. But with a homeopath, these things are important to us. How the cold affects the person, how it affects what their actual symptoms are, and then how it affects their digestion, their sleep, their urination, their skin, their mood, their cognition. And those who have been to me know that if I'm going to treat you when you have a cold, I'm going to ask you a lot of these little kinds of questions. Homeopathic remedies, I can pass these around. These are little kits that have the remedies in there, and they all have different names, and they all have different indications. And this is what they look like. And then, and you can buy these on the internet. And then I have a kit here that some of you would like to look at, I'm sure. This is a beautiful kit that has hundreds of remedies in it that we travel with. Sometimes we don't travel with it. We find that if we travel with it, then sick people find us. They don't even know we have it, but yeah. Please don't open any of these. We don't want to open any of them. You can look at those, and they have the names on them. And they come in different strengths, and the strengths has to do with how much they are diluted. So the very, very first sign of a cold that has not differentiated too much, the person just feels like, oh, it's coming, I can feel it. The most common remedy is ferrum phosphoricum. I don't have a blackboard here. It's F-E-R-R-U-M, and then phosphorus, like P-H-O. Ferrum phosphoricum. And what people who need that remedy present as, they feel sort of flushed, they feel like they're getting sick, they feel a little feeling of like doom coming along. And we can head it off with the ferrum phos. Some people, when they get a headache with their cold, the headache comes on like stronger than the cold itself, and it's pounding, and the pupils are dilated, and the cheeks are flushed. They often need the remedy belladonna. That's like a first sign of illness kind of remedy. All right, one sec here. Pull up my list. Aren't they cute, the little homeopathic remedies?
Now, what would you do with them? Put them in?
Okay, so the way that you take them is it's very different than conventional medicine. Less is more. So you take 1 or 2 pellets under the tongue and you allow them to dissolve. And that's how you take the homeopathic remedy. And we use homeopathy in this way for acute prescribing as indicated. We also use homeopathy, and I believe that the promise of homeopathy really is that the bigger vision of homeopathy is what we call constitutional prescribing, where we're prescribing not necessarily when a person's acutely ill, but for more chronic illnesses, for psycho-emotional challenges, for cognitive issues, really for the whole person. We call that constitutional prescribing. That's outside the scope of this talk today, but something that I'm very interested in. My husband and I do a lot of teaching of constitutional homeopathy around the world, actually. And we do an online course through the New England School of Homeopathy. So, okay. Aconite is another remedy, aconite, that might be in one of those kits over there. Aconite is at the very first sign of illness, where they are, especially after exposure to the cold. I think Annabelle said that sometimes people get sick when they're exposed to the cold. The time that I see this a lot in the children I practice is little kids that get on the back of the bike, and the parents have the helmet on them, but the wind and the cold, and then the next day the kid is just laid out. That's an aconite situation with the homeopathic remedy. Gelsemium is another wonderful remedy for colds. Gelsemium is a remedy, people who need this remedy, they feel dull, droopy, drowsy, They feel like their eyelids are just cannot stay open. They are so bone weary. Has anybody ever felt that with an acute illness? I think most of us at some point in our lives, you just literally feel like you can't even pull the cover over your head. That intense fatigue, that's the remedy gelsemium, and it works beautifully. And what it does is it sort of cuts it off at the pass. It never gets to settle all the way in. And that's why I love it, homeopathy, so much. Bryonia also is another remedy that we think about for colds and flus, where the person who needs it, everything is dried out. So the inside of the nasal passage is totally dry, dry mouth, dry cough, dry lungs. They feel a dryness in terms of they are constipated. And what goes along with that in the more psycho-emotional realm is they are irritable. It's like they're brittle, and they're just snapping at you, or you feel snappy yourself, and like, nobody did anything to you, just, you want to just like throw something. That's a bryonia state. And we give the remedy bryonia. And the way we give the remedy is we give the remedy, if it helps, we don't give any more. If they get worse again, then we give another dose. Now, at the same time, those are the main remedies. There are many remedies, but those are like the top, favorite remedies. At the very first sign of an illness, I will have somebody do hot foot bath. So I just keep these around. And I have a person sit, they can read a book, watching TV, they take off their shoes, don't do their shoes, they're really bad. As hot as you can tolerate, without burning yourself, a hot foot bath. 10 or 15 minutes, above the ankle. What this does is it draws the congestion away from the head and the neck and past all the organs of elimination and past your lymph nodes. Now, if you want to really accentuate the efficacy of a hot foot bath, you have a second little bucket here. Wow, okay. You have a second little bucket here that you fill with ice water. You literally take a tray or two of ice, people don't have trays anymore, but whatever your ice machine is, in there, ice water. And you're gonna go like this. You're gonna put your feet in hot water, 8 to 10 minutes, and then you're gonna do 5 seconds in the cold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you're going to go back into the hot. It feels so good. It feels so good. You're going to go back into the ice. And you go back and forth for like 15, 20 minutes, whatever. 20 minutes, half an hour maybe. You're going to have to ask your friend, if you live with somebody, or your partner, or your kid, or your parent, to keep making this hotter and keep making this colder. Because you can't get up and ruin it. You just want to get that. And the bigger the contrast between the hot and the cold, the more efficacious it'll be. And it draws the congestion away. It's so powerful. End on the cold. Dry your feet off real good. Put on some socks and go rest. Okay? That's called the alternating hot and cold foot bath. It's free and there's no side effects. I mean, the only reason I wouldn't do it is somebody extremely diabetic that couldn't feel, they could burn themselves theoretically. Just be careful. But other than that, yeah.
Did you say end with cold?
End with cold. When we end with cold, the body gets the message that there's something cold on the feet. And the way we move heat in our body is we send blood to the area. And so same is true for people that are always cold. When you're in the shower, you should end on cold. If you can't do the whole body because it's too much of a shock, at least do the hands and the feet and splash your face and get your thyroid with the cold in here. That's a beautiful way of really equilibrating the circulation throughout your body. It's very good for circulation in general. So I can't tell you how often, and even like my kids when they were little, sucking their thumb and dragging the blanket, the baba, they go and they grab the bucket, like, the hot foot bath, mommy. They love it. And I don't know. All right, if you want to get real naturopathic, you can then, now your feet are nice and warm, nice and cozy, toasty. When you're going to bed, you can do the warming sock treatment, which has been renamed. It used to be called the cold wet sock treatment, but that doesn't have very good, a curb appeal. The warming sock treatment is this. You take your nice warm feet with you to bed. They're coming anyways. All right, get in bed. And you're going to bring with you a pair of thin cotton socks, like the thinnest ones in the back of your drawer you never wear. And you're going to wet them with very cold ice water if you can, maybe up to the arch. And wring it out so you can't get anything else out of it. So it's just damp. You're going to take them to bed, You're gonna put on the cold, wet sock. I know it sounds like torture. You put on the cold, wet sock, and then you're gonna cover it with, so it sounds familiar, doesn't it? You're gonna cover it with wool socks. Wool, it has to, really has to be wool. Polypropylene doesn't work that well. Acrylic doesn't work at all. It has to be wool. And what will happen is, like I said earlier, your body gets the message of something cold and wet on the feet. It's going to try to warm it up, and the way it's going to do it, it's going to send the circulation down toward the feet. It doesn't mean that your feet are going to blow up. It just means that it's going to get past your lymph nodes, your organs of elimination, like your liver, your kidneys, your spleen, and it just is, it's very stimulating. Within an hour or two, a little kid will dry those socks completely. They might take them off in the middle of the night, fine, no problem. An adult might take 5 or 6 hours. They will eventually totally dry, and they'll be very warm and cozy. And you might wake up and be like, wow, I can breathe again. So anybody with lung congestion, anybody with a bad cough, anybody with a cold that can't seem to get rid of, I love this treatment.
And for allergies too?
Not so much for allergies, because for allergies, it's less to do with circulation.
And more to do.
More to do with, getting the fan going. If it's airborne allergens, the fan I think could be so helpful, and working on the microbiome. When we work on the microbiome, we're we're boosting the immune system, we're also helping the immune system be better fine-tuned, so that instead of this, dander, dust, that what is an allergy? You're having an over-response to a thing that's not itself pathogenic. That's what an allergy is. If it's a food allergy, a food sensitivity, then a lot what we do with people is, there's two kinds of food sensitivities. One is a fixed allergy, like a person who's allergic to peanuts. They're never going to get over that, I don't think. Maybe in the future, but at this point, no real help for that, except giving kids peanut butter early has been shown to help prevent them from developing peanut allergies. There are some more details to that, so don't just go give them peanut butter, but there is some information about that. But what I would say is that you can, if you work on the microbiome over some years, many people lose their food sensitivities. And now they can eat, maybe they can't overeat it, but now they can have fill in the blank food that they used to be sensitive to.
A lot of mine is more like cleaning stuff, like the really heavy duty, stinky, crap-free.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think most people, if they are able, should slowly, either quickly do the full clean out, or gradually, as you replace them with anything with a smell. Even essential oils, the particulate matter of essential oils, it's a little bit controversial, but anything with chemicals, it's just not good for us. And there's so much that we can't control, our air, our water, our food supply, we can control to varying degrees by what we choose, but the things that we can control, what we put on our skin, what we clean our toilet with, what we dye our hair with, which obviously I haven't really gotten to yet. Yeah, I mean, they're really toxic for us, and they're just not really good. Now, I sort of personally did everything right my whole life, and I have a genetic mutation, which is why I went through breast and ovarian cancer, then leukemia. But like for most people, if we're working to prevent real bad chronic illnesses, things like cancer, things like diabetes, things like heart disease, things that really have an impact on people's quality of life, I think one of the places we have to work on is reducing our toxic exposure to the best of our ability. We can only do so much. And then also, you shouldn't worry about it so much. Like I had a patient recently who was terrified of, I'm not sure where it came from. He was terrified of glass in his food. I think he had something where a glass broke and he had something like that. And he was telling me all about this problem. And all I could think about was this time that I was going to my acupuncture session and I wanted to bring a gift to my acupuncturist. So I decided to make her a smoothie. All right, made her smoothie. Got beautiful food in there. I got like my bananas and my pineapple and some protein powder and yogurt. And I don't know, it was just beautiful. And she was enjoying it and she was sipping along and she was like, what's that? She takes out this small little roseate piece of metal in the shape of a rose. I had this little spoon that I used to do for like salt. I don't know how it got into the blender. I like blended it up, except that the little rose part never quite blended up. And she was like, what's that? I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But, so we can only do what we can do in terms of toxins. We do our best, and we try not to poison our best friends. Okay. So I love the hot foot bath. I love the wet socks. I think massage is also terrific. Self-massage can really work. If you have a person to rub your feet, anything that gets the circulation going. Going for a little walk, as I said earlier, I think can be helpful. Okay. And then we have like the world of herbs. Like, what about the herbs? Everybody's talking about herbs. Which are the herbs that are the best, and which ones really have an impact? There is, an entire history of botanical medicine that just goes back thousands and thousands of years. Only in the last, 100 years or so are people really putting herbs to similar kinds of testing that would test other sorts of products. So I'm a person that I'm interested in what's evidence-informed and evidence-based. I'm also interested in my clinical experience and the experience of my teachers. If I were only going to recommend one herb, okay, I'm not going to only recommend one herb, but one of the best herbs, preventive and the first sign of illness, is elderberry. There is some excellent research on elderberry. And you can use elderberry, you can make your own elderberry tincture. Elderberries grow here beautifully. You can buy it in different forms. Here's some nice immune lozenges that are elderberry and zinc. This is a very nice company, Nature's Way. I have no proprietary interest in this. If people would like to try one, you can. I never try anything with pass them around because by the time I end the conference, I would be nauseous and want to. But you're welcome to try. They taste like candy. They make them palatable. Elderberry is a wonderful herb at the beginning of illnesses, and the way you can take it, you can make tea out of it. You can take it in a tincture. The thing about herbs is you need to take a lot of them. You can't just do like a little sip and that's going to be it. If you're doing elderberry tea, maybe mixing with like the ginger and the turmeric like I had, you want to just keep a pot of it going and be sipping on it through the day. If you're taking a lozenge like this, you might want to take 3 or 4 of them over the course of the day. If you're taking a tincture, the way that you derive the medicinal qualities of the herbs is by soaking them in either alcohol, small amounts of alcohol, apple cider vinegar. There are some water decoctions as well that would be considered tea. Lozenges. There's a lot of different ways you can take herbs, and they all work. So, for me, if it's a upper respiratory thing, I'm really going to lean more into the teas because I want people to be well hydrated anyway. So, same thing if I have somebody with a bladder infection and they want to take this and that herb for their bladder and they want to take it in a capsule, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. If you want it to get to your bladder, take it in a tea form, So, and then you also have to figure out what's convenient for people. If they're at work, they don't have access to hot water, whatever. You've got to use the formats that work best for you. Okay, echinacea. Many of you have heard of echinacea. It's also purple coneflower. I have a ton of it in my garden. It's so beautiful, blooms late. Echinacea has been studied for a long time as a preventive and a treatment for upper respiratory tract infections. Again, all the different formats you can use. It's not a very good tasting herb to my palate. This is one that I use more in capsule form. Either encapsulated or pressed capsule. They make it in different ways. And again, you got to do it 3 or 4 times a day. And you can mix and match. You can use elderberry with echinacea, but you don't have to just have one or the other. Okay. Some of the nice teas you can buy right over the counter, like honey lemon throat comfort. This is a beautiful tea. It's got a combination of lemongrass, peppermint, licorice root, wild cherry, echinacea, slippery elm. They're all wonderful immune-supporting herbs, and it's so easy. Like, I always travel with something like this in a little plastic bag, and then I have it when I'm in my hotel room or at my brother's house, Other herbs that we think about that are beautiful are thyme. Like a lot of the culinary herbs. Thyme. You like thyme? I love thyme. Yeah, it's so beautiful. It grows in my coop house. The thing about thyme is it's antibiotic, antiviral, antifungal. It has so many really incredible values as a culinary herb, but then you can also get it in the form where you're taking it in a capsule, in a tincture, worked into a lozenge, and it's really one of the most readily available herbs. You have to be careful with herbs, like where they come from. Have they been fumigated? Is there mold on them? So these are the things, like if I'm gonna have my little medicine cabinet, I try to buy organic and I try to keep it fresh. Herbs lose their capacity to do the job you're wanting them to do as time passes. The alcohol extracts last the longest, and the teas last the shortest. They just degenerate after a while. It doesn't mean there's no use of them, but they're not gonna, if you go in your yard and you pick, what did you pick recently? Probably something fantastic.
Herbs?
Yeah,
Well, I just put some Tulsi and calendula that I was drying in.
yeah, so if you take it right out of your garden, Tulsi is holy basil, which also antimicrobial, antibiotic, antiviral, antifungal. It's like a miracle herb. If you pick it fresh from your yard, it's gonna be more potent than the thing that's been sitting on the shelf for a year. I mean, and it's also true that stuff is still gonna work. So sometimes if I got a whole closet full of all this stuff, and if I know something's been in the closet for several years, I'll just take 3 or 4 times as much, because I know it's not as potent, so I'll just take more. I'll put 3 tea bags in the cup instead of 1. You can do that. You're not going to hurt yourself with any of these herbs. You're not hurting yourself. Ginger is a fabulous herb. I keep ginger root in my freezer. And the reason I keep it in my freezer is that it grates very easily. So I have in one bag in my freezer ginger and turmeric root, both. And if I'm making, like anything I'm making, a casserole, a frittata, some stir-fried veggies, I always start with onions, garlic. Garlic is also anti-everything. And we have an incredible garlic grower here in Denver Beach, and sees Solidarity Farm up in Orange. I start with garlic and ginger, and I grate them, and turmeric root, I grate that. Everything I cook looks orange. My fingers turn orange, because these are all they're anti-cancer, and they're also a lot of these anti-winter illnesses. And they have a beautiful flavor, A lot of Indian cooking starts with all that kind of stuff, and that's very, very good for us. All right, so other herbs that are soothing, people that have lung issues, one of the best herbs for the lungs is licorice root. So it's not like the black licorice that comes in a bag at the store. It's like actually a tree, a shrub, if you will. And licorice root is very, very, the word we use in botanical medicine is demulcent. It's soothing, it soothes the mucous membrane lining of the trachea. So inside your trachea, you have little cilia, little hairs inside there. And if they get viruses or bacteria, they get irritated, and it causes you to create some mucus and to cough. So coughing, while it's bad and people don't want to cough and it hurts, it can hurt, it's also the body's way of trying to rid itself of whatever's causing the cough. So that's why it's so dangerous for a baby to get a bad cough and get pertussis, because they don't have the ability to cough it up. And all that mucus, they kind of drown in that mucus. As we get older, we get better. I mean, have you ever been somewhere and somebody nearby gives this major hawk and you're like, oh my God. And you just wonder what's come up and where they're going to put it, and oh my goodness, try not to think about it too much. Yeah, I mean, but really that's a gift that the human physiology offers us, is the ability to rid ourselves of that gunk. It plays a role. Now, some people get chronic post-nasal drip. There's constantly the post-nasal drip, down the back, constantly. Now, if that is not a cold, that's not a cough, that's probably some kind of allergen that they don't maybe know what they're sensitive to, but either something in their environment or something that they're eating that is causing them to be chronically post-nasal dripping. Okay, other herbs. Mullein, it grows on the side of the road, that puts up that tall shoot with the little yellow flowers. I love it. Mullein makes a beautiful demulcent. It's in many, many cough formulas that we put together for patients, because it's very, very soothing. And if you look at the mullein leaf, has anybody ever seen mullein growing?
Fuzzy?
It's fuzzy,
Yeah.
and it's soft like that.
Kind of like grayish color.
Yes, it gets kind of grayish green. It's beautiful, it's palette, and that kind of pale yellow. I love mullein, and I will use it for any time there's irritation in the lungs. Mullein is a beautiful, beautiful.
And a tea or something.
What's that?
Is that the leaves?
That's a great question. In botanical medicine, there are options of which part of the plant you're using. You can use the root, you can use the stem, you can use the leaf, you can use the bud, you can use the flower. In mullein tinctures, they are mostly using the root and the leaf. And then we use the flowers more for things related to the ears. There's mullein oil. I know some of you maybe use that with your dog. But you can also use it on kids with external otitis media, like swimmer's ear, a fungal infection. Mullein oil, very helpful there. So these are some of our favorite herbs that we use day in, day out with upper respiratory infections. Yeah, all right, what about, I'm just gonna take a detour here into the eye cup world. People with conjunctivitis. Conjunctivitis, pink eye, is a common winter ailment. It's really contagious, mostly in children, but adults get it too. And the best treatment that I have ever seen, and I've really used this for 40 years, is get a good eye cup. They make them plastic. I like these glass ones. And fill it with very, very hot water. From the sink is fine. So you see the steam coming off of it. And then put in 5 or 6 drops of golden seal tincture. Golden seal, Hydrastis canadensis, is another herb. It tastes terrible. You can, if anybody wants to taste it, you can open this jar and take a drop.
So
It's going to your nausea.
tincture?
What's
Is
that?
An alcohol-based tincture?
You can get an alcohol-based, well, okay, so if you want the alcohol, I prefer the alcohol-based tinctures. They last longer and they're more potent. That's why you put it in the very hot water, because the alcohol will evaporate off. You put 5 or 6 drops of your golden seal tincture in your eye cup, and you let it sit so you don't burn your eyeball. You let it sit 10, 15 minutes. And then you basically, the way you use an eye cup is you put it on the bottom lid of your eye, you lean over, put the top, look up, and then look sideways, like that. I always have people who have conjunctivitis just in one eye. I usually have people buy 2 eye cups and label them left and right. And then even if you only have it in one eye, do it on both sides, because chances are it's going to come to the other side pretty soon. And you just do it on the other side. This treatment, it's so good. It's so sort of specific for conjunctivitis, and I keep a jar of golden seal in my house literally for this purpose. I don't think I've ever had conjunctivitis, but my kids had it, kids get it. That's that. Other little specific things I just wanted to mention. Okay, lysine. We'll switch over now to some supplements, nutritional supplements. Lysine. Lysine is an amino acid that is one of the building blocks of protein, right? So for a lot of people, every time they get a cold, they get a cold sore. They get the herpes simplex virus. It's endemic. It's all over our society. It doesn't mean that people have sexually transmitted diseases. It's just very, very, very common. And sometimes people get a cold, and the cold is over, and they got this sore for like another week or 2, and it doesn't look nice, and it's right there, or they have a wedding they have to go to, or it's under the nose. Lysine is a beautiful way to address cold sores. The reason for that is that cold sores need another amino acid, which is called arginine, to reproduce. So you keep making more and more arginine, and then you keep making more and more of the virus, and then the virus, it just lives on. If you take the lysine, it fills up the binding sites so that the arginine has nowhere to land. So we also have people go off of the foods that are high in arginine. Nuts and chocolate, unfortunately, are very high in arginine. So people that have cold sores, especially if they're getting sick, it's like go off your nuts and your chocolate for a few weeks. It's going to help. And take some lysine. And you can also use some topical lysine is available. You can put right directly on an area that has cold sores. Okay. All right, so other supplements that we think about. Vitamin D, I always say to people, once a year you should ask your primary care doctor to check your vitamin D levels. For optimal immune function, we like the vitamin D level to be about 50 to 60. The normal range is 30 to 70, but we don't want people with a vitamin D of 32. You really want to be 50, 60, something like that. If you're a cancer survivor, 60, 70, I would say. So ask if you can get that tested. It's very easy to test. It's super easy to get vitamin D deficient. I have people that eat a beautiful, healthy diet, do everything right, and their vitamin D is 18. And it's not good for your immune system in the long run to have a low vitamin D. It's not good for your bone health either. So get it tested if you can, and you'll supplement, accordingly. Vitamin C. Everybody was asking, how much vitamin C should I take in the winter? How much vitamin C? Vitamin C is beautiful. It works better preventively than it does if you're already sick. And I I personally do not take vitamin C on a daily basis during the winter, but I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. If you're not a big fruits and vegetable person, you probably want to take 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day. Just, it helps to, what vitamin C, it plays a role in so many physiologic actions in your body. But one thing it does is it helps to stabilize your mast cells. The mast cells are the ones that release histamine. Histamine is the one that makes everything runny, drippy, all of that. So if you have adequate vitamin C, you will be less drippy and less mucousy. If that's your problem, you want to marry your vitamin C with bioflavonoids. Bioflavonoids are those things, like if you have an orange, and inside the orange is a lot of vitamin C, in the rind is a lot of bioflavonoids. And the bioflavonoids also stabilize the mast cell membrane, and they're anti-inflammatory. So you can buy like a combination vitamin C bioflavonoid, or a kind of bioflavonoid that is commonly available is called quercetin with a Q, quercetin. And that's really lovely for helping stabilize your mast cell membranes so that you don't release as much mucus here and there in all the different runny parts that we have. Okay. Fish oil. What about fish oil? Not going to be appropriate for vegans out in the crowd, but anybody who's not a vegan, if I were going to take only one supplement, I recommend only one supplement to people, it would be fish oil. It has a positive effect on so many things: immune function, skin, hair, hormone balance, prevention of musculoskeletal problems, prevention of cardiovascular disease, prevention of cognitive decline. It's sort of like all over the map. Probably because of its anti-inflammatory effects. And why did we start giving people fish oil? Because people were studied in areas where they ate a lot of fish, and we saw much lower levels of all these kinds of things. So fish oil, a combination of EPA and DHA is probably the one to go for. And I wouldn't say it's like if you start to feel sick, start taking fish oil. This is something that people can be taking all the time, and to good effect. To good effect. And I say, take it all week, take the weekends off. You don't necessarily need to every single day.
Okay. I was just going to ask about krill versus fish oil.
Yeah, you can do krill, and then there are also some fish oil, quote-unquote fish oils that are really derived from other algae that have a similar makeup, and they tend to be more expensive. But they do work similarly. You do need to take a little more of them, like same bang for the buck. It looks the same, but you need to take like a third again as much to get up to the same amount that you would want. But yeah, krill oil can work great.
But krill is more potent?
Less potent.
Krill is less potent.
It is. Because if you think about it, like as we go up the food chain, right, it's smaller. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Thank
So, yeah. Other supplements that we think about, magnesium glycinate. That's probably the best form of magnesium if people need to take it to help with relaxing muscles and with helping with sleep, helping maintain, if people tend to be a little constipated, magnesium glycinate can help in that regard. It can help with leg cramps and things like that. But the main reason I use it for people and why I'm bringing it up with winter illnesses is that it's anti-stress. It tends to help people relax a little. So remember that first thing I said about psychoneuroimmunology? It tends to just give you a little chillax a little bit, it'll sleep better. So you can overdo it with magnesium. You'll know you're taking too much, you'll get loose stools. That would be the main problem. And that's not fun. So keep an eye on that. We talked a little bit about the probiotics. The two other supplements I would talk about are NAC, N-acetylcysteine. NAC is a mucus thinner. So for somebody that's got the stuck mucus here with the sinusitis, they can't seem to get it down, they can't cough it up, N-acetylcysteine. It's of the supplements that I'm describing today, it's the one that sometimes people don't feel good in their tummy when they take it. I have not really been able to predict that. Like a lot of things, I'm not going to give that person that because of this. NAC's randomly, people, I didn't feel good when I took it. So I say that, and I say that to people. I say buy the smallest amount you can find, because you want to make sure it agrees with you. N-acetylcysteine is a great mucus thinner. And then we do think about a B complex because, again, just really for stress. It's a great supplement just for stress and for helping people feel less stressed out. Especially if they're very stressed that week before their period. B complex and magnesium tend to really help with the PMS stress. And for a lot of people, that's when they get sick, when their defenses are down, if you will.
Is that helpful with menopause too?
That's not helpful for menopause. For menopause, we have to have a whole other class here. Yeah, menopause, oh my goodness. The nice thing about menopause, I will say, is that as this generation, and the one right before, I'm 65, so almost 66. So for people in like this generation and maybe people 10, 20 years older who had more confidence and more knowledge, they're like demanding more, and they're not going to go through menopause and take it. And what we know now is that most people, unless they have a history of estrogen receptor positive breast cancer, most women, the first 10 years after the period stops, should be on estrogen replacement. It will help with their bone health, it will help prevent cognitive decline, help prevent cardiovascular disease. So for some of us, that ship has sailed, and it's not appropriate for us, but for many people, that is the right thing to do. And that has changed. That's a recommendation that has shifted over I've been in practice for 40 years, that the information has gotten better and we understand more. And it's being given now in formulations that are balanced with progesterone and maybe testosterone, and it's not going to put people at risk for breast cancer. So, okay. I wish I could say more about that, but I gotta stay focused here. Okay.
You're gonna have to watch your website.
Yeah. I love talking about menopause because there's so much to say. I do want to just talk a little bit about the castor oil pack. Castor oil you can buy in any size jar. This is a little piece of flannel, take good care. A little piece of flannel. If anybody's having issues with like real chesty cough or feeling really sick and they feel it in their belly, I love the castor oil pack. You basically take a piece of flannel, you can just cut up a flannel sheet or a flannel shirt, and you're going to pour the castor oil like in a circle here, and then you're going to put it on the area in question, maybe with a hot water bottle, maybe with a heating pad. It's very relaxing. It draws out inflammation. It's very soothing. It helps the digestive process. You can put it right on your belly. It's great for menstrual cramps. I love the castor oil pack. And then you can reuse it and reuse it and reuse it and throw it in the wash, every use it for a week, throw it in the wash. It's very, very lovely and very calming, very soothing. Similarly, when people are getting sick, I love the Epsom salt bath. You can buy it. This has lavender in it, a little lavender. But I put in 2 or 3 cups of Epsom salt in a tall bath. It's a lot of use of water, and it's like one of the many gifts I give myself. I love a hot bath of Epsom salt in the winter. Very, very soothing and very relaxing. All right. Don't forget about honey. Honey itself is antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, and very, very soothing. I think it's probably the best cough medicine of any. Like all the herbs, all the supplements. I'm going to talk about homeopathic remedies for coughs in a minute, but it's very, very demulcent, very, very soothing. And it does have, it has sugar, but it's not as refined, and your body has some minerals in with it. And for people that have seasonal allergies, we know that a teaspoon or so a day of local honey, it has to be within, a quarter mile of your house or something like that, in the month or 2 leading up to your worst allergy season seems to cut down on your allergy symptoms. So that's a nice, sweet way to try to prevent some seasonal allergies. All right, homeopathic remedies for cough. Some of them are just amazing. It's like, wow, the cough just went away. Drosera, D-R-O-S-E-R-A, Drosera, is really, we think about particularly for spasmodic coughs, especially if they're worse at night when you lie down. And it's so bad, the coughing, that it can lead to like gagging and vomiting, that kind of intense stuff. Okay, there's another one, Rumex crispus, which is a very common weed. What's that green, long, skinny leaf?
And there is an arrowleaf plantain. I'm not sure if that's what kind of name. Does that sound right?
What's it called?
A narrowleaf plantain?
It's a narrowleaf plant. It is narrowleaf. I think that's what it is. It's a remedy made from that called Rumex crispus, and that's particularly indicated for a cough that's triggered by cold air. So you're totally fine. You go outside in the cold, you take a deep breath, and all of a sudden, the cough, you've got like a spasmodic cough that you can't stop, cold air. And that's the people that you see walking around with a scarf over their mouth so they don't inhale any cold air. Usually very dry. And a lot of times when I'm asking somebody about the cough, I say, what makes you cough? Because that is going to help you find an indication for the remedy.
the Rumex cough is going to start with a tickle in the throat, here. As with some coughs start here, some coughs start from the back of the mouth. And that one's right in the throat pit.
Sorry, it's a doc. It's not plantain, it's doc.
Oh, it's doc, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
either curly doc or yellow doc.
Okay, okay. Yellow dock. Okay, yellow dock's a beautiful herb to live with. Okay, Antimonium tartaricum is where it's a rattly cough where they cannot expectorate. They can't get the mucus up and they can't get it down. And it sounds rumbly. I don't know if you've ever heard it sound rumbly. Like all that mucus, they can't move it up and they can't move it down. It's very disheartening. And the person has to sit up. As soon as they lie down, they feel like they're drowning in the mucus. Antimonium tart. We see this more in older people who don't have a difficult time expectorating. Okay. Then for people that have croup, that middle of the night croup, this is one of the times when people fall in love with homeopathy. They have a child with croup, and they have to have the kid in the shower, with the steam to get it going. And then they give them like one dose of Hepar sulf, and then the kid doesn't cough again. It's like, wow.
What is it?
Hepar, Hepar, Hepar sulf. Is for croupy coughs, better, moist environment. They're barking, they sound like a seal. They'll kind of that round, like that, Hepar sulf. And they tend to be very irritable. They're super irritable. All right, we'll just do a few remedies for sore throats, and then we'll just open up for some Q&A here as we wrap up. One of the best remedies for bad sore throat is Phytolacca. Phytolacca. Phytolacc. It's pokeweed. Pokeweed. This is the kind of sore throat with extremely swollen glands under here. They get like golf balls under here, and it really hurts to swallow. And it hurts to swallow empty, like this, or swallow water, or swallow food. That's very particular to this remedy. Any kind of swallowing, which is hard. You got the mucus, you got to swallow, you got to spit, and you get these big golf ball swollen glands.
What was it again?
Phytolacca, Phytolacca. And by the way, you can write all these things down, but you can find this online. You can type, what are the top 5 homeopathic remedies for coughs? It'll tell you the name, it'll tell you the indications. There are wonderful books that you can find. This is just a little smattering here. Lachesis is made from the South American bushmaster snake venom, believe it or not. Those are the people that cannot take anything around their neck. They have to have, in the middle of the winter, they're wearing a big, they can't wear a scarf or a turtleneck, everything open, they feel like they're being choked. And they are much worse going to sleep. The expression in homeopathy is they sleep into their cough. And the cough is unrelenting, strong, and they're irritable and angry, and they lash out at people just like a snake would. And their throat usually is very dark. Doesn't look pink and red, and it's nice. It looks like dark purplish color there. Not very nice. Yeah, okay. The other thing I will say, one last idea is don't forget about acupressure. You can always type into the computer, what are the best acupressure points for sinusitis? So and acupressure, if you find the points, it's basically a matter of holding those areas, maybe going in little circles. This is a very good area for sinusitis right down here, in the nose creases. But for whatever ails you, what's the best acupressure points for feeling like my stomach's not emptying? There's some beautiful points on the top of the head, helps empty the stomach. So just remember about acupressure, look it up, because it's like free and no side effects. You're not gonna hurt yourself. And if you have somebody around who can do it on you, for you, reflexology, basically the idea that the acupuncture meridians end in the feet, and all over the feet you have points that are related to different organ and organ systems of the body. Reflexology can be a beautiful way to help move the blood to the area in question. And so we love to get, I just have people open up the reflexology chart and then sit there, and they can do it on themselves if they can reach, or maybe a friend or somebody nearby can help them. Okay, what kind of questions do you have? It can be about anything. We'll just open up the floor for questions. We have about 10 minutes. And yes?
How about with Hashimoto's, like autoimmune diseases?
What about Hashimoto's autoimmune disease? Yes. Well, you know, the thing about the immune system, it's so amazing, and then sometimes it goes overboard. And when it goes overboard, sometimes it starts to attack ourselves. And one of the most common forms of autoimmune disease is Hashimoto's, where your body is fighting your thyroid. So usually that means that your TSH levels, the thyroid stimulating hormone that comes from the brain, hypothalamus, is very, very high, showing that your body is trying to make enough thyroid hormone to, you know, because the thyroid is sort of the master gland that helps control everything related to your metabolism. So most people that have Hashimoto's, if it's gotten bad enough, the thyroid is not producing enough thyroid hormone anymore. And that's when people take either something like levothyroxine or Synthroid or some of the natural versions of desiccated thyroid to bring their thyroid levels up. But that doesn't do anything to address the autoimmune thing that's going on. And we know that when a person has one autoimmune disease, they're more likely to develop another autoimmune disease, which we don't want. So then we're doing everything we can to help balance immune function. We don't want to boost it up. That can make autoimmunity worse. We don't want to suppress it because that can make the person more sick to other things. So when we are working to help balance immune function, first thing we want to do is work on the microbiome, like we already talked about. The second thing is we want to get people off of any foods that they're sensitive to. Because if you have a little bit of an allergy, it's like your body is mounting this defense, and that can help contribute to further autoimmunity. If people are super autoimmune and it's affecting their digestive system or their joints, there are certainly drugs that are used to help calm immune system overwork. But they come with a price tag. You know, every drug has its pros and cons and side effects. And we take drugs when the benefits outweigh the side effects. You know, chemotherapy, I mean, it's very toxic, but the benefits hopefully are going to outweigh the side effects, and the side effects will be short-lived. So yeah, there are things to do for autoimmune disease that are mostly related to diet, reducing overall stress, working on stress management, and I think that's also true when we talk about getting sick a lot. I think that thinking about what are the biggest stressors in our lives and what can we do to get out from under them, shift our focus, do the things that we know help us dissipate the stress that we have are important, and that's equally important for people with autoimmune disease. So, and a lot of autoimmune disease, believe it or not, reverses itself. It does over time. And sometimes it will go into a whole autoimmune phase and then a little bit less. And there are leverage points. For me as a doctor, my job is to figure out what's the most important leverage point that we can work with this patient at this point in time, and what is modifiable and what is not. So, okay. What else? Yes.
You had mentioned like your own cancer journey, and I was curious, within the cancer journey, when would be the best time for someone to meet with you? Or
Oh yeah, I love
meet
seeing
with
a person right when they're diagnosed. First of all, I can help them with the shock and the grief and the overwhelm. A. And B, I can help them figure out I have a chapter in my book which is called How to Talk So Your Oncologist Listens and Listen So Your Oncologist Talks, which is after that wonderful parenting book, How to Talk So Your Kids Listen and Listen So Your Kids Talk. Yeah, because I feel like it's so overwhelming and you have to go in, you need to know what to ask, what you need to know. So I feel like that's a great time. And then if somebody has a plan, they know they're doing this chemo or this radiation or this immunotherapy or this targeted therapy, here are things you can do that help to enhance the efficacy of treatment and to hopefully prevent side effects, and then to address side effects that might arise. Okay, here is also a Manuka honey lozenge you can have here for your cough if you want one of those. Not that I'm prescribing on the spot. Yeah, there you go. So, so I work with patients while they're going through treatment. You know, sometimes I'm working with somebody, maybe they had breast cancer and they're having breast reconstruction and having problems with the surgery or the scar, you know, we can help with that. And then I love working with people that are finished with treatment. And I wrote a whole book about it, so. Yeah, there's never a bad time, you know, there's never really a bad time. What I'm working on right now, actually, is I'm giving a big talk at one of our national conferences on working with patients going through stem cell transplants, because there's a lot to help improve the outcomes and hopefully prevent graft versus host disease, which is the big thing. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
I have 4 copies of my book if anybody wants it. They're $20 a pop. Happy to sign them for them. What else? Yes.
Amy, you didn't say anything about mushrooms and mushrooms.
Oh, mushrooms. How do I forget about mushrooms? Yes. Mushrooms. The
Not to overwhelm more.
No. The thing about mushrooms is like the more we study them, the more we understand that they are so powerful. And it's every single kind of mushroom. Even the little white button ones that are the cheapest ones, they have a lot of immune supporting effect. They have a lot of anti-cancer effect. You can eat them. If you're going to eat mushrooms, don't eat them raw. It's hard to get the medicinal quality. You can't get through the chitin. The chitin is the plant cell membrane on the outside. You can't get through it through your saliva and your enzymes. So you have to saute them a little bit or cook them or put them in soup. The cheapest way to get whole mushrooms is to buy them organic, freeze-dried, dried. They come in a big bucket and you can put them in anything, soup, casserole, egg, they reconstitute real good and it's like much cheaper. But buying them raw is also great, or you can also, I have here like a mushroom blend, they make tinctures out of mushrooms, you can get them in capsules, in powder form, big fan of mushrooms. And then the more they study them, like lion's mane and Reiki, and they really are powerful, powerful.
So that mushroom coffee's legit.
Yes, mushroom coffee's legit. It's coming from our video guy, Alice. Yes, mushroom coffee's legit, totally. And also coffee itself, by the way, coffee is the single best source of antioxidants in the American diet, as long as you don't have more than 1 or 2 cups a day. The only people that should not drink any coffee are people that have issues with their heart rate, in terms of palpitations or atrial fibrillation. People who are anxious, people who are not sleeping well shouldn't have any afternoon or 2. And people that are anxious, it will make people more anxious. And people that have chronic bladder infections, like interstitial cystitis, chronic bladder infections, coffee is an irritant. So that's a lot of people, but everybody else, you should really enjoy 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day. And the mushroom coffee, Alex, yes, go for it. Yeah. The main thing about coffee is coffee's not the problem. It's the cream and the sugar and the
all the junk.
I once went with somebody to Starbucks. I don't really ever go there, but I once went and they got like a hoka mocha choca 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 papa. It was like $10, which I couldn't believe it. And it was so enormous, and it must have been 2,000 calories. And I just had 1 sip. I was like, oh, this is so good. This is so good. I don't drink coffee because I have so much energy. If I drink coffee, I think I would just spin off the earth. But I do love the smell, and I love a little coffee ice cream in the summer. Yay coffee. All right, thank you so much for your attention and time. Stay healthy, everybody.
Thank you. Wow. Very healthy.
Okay. If anybody wants to get my newsletter.